Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Today we have an exciting show for you. If you're away this weekend and not paying attention to the political news, well, the Munich Security Council had, a conference this past weekend, and there was a lot of headliners that came out of that, one of which was Hillary Clinton being critical of Donald Trump. What else is new? But we have a few clips here just kind of outlining that, and then we'll delve into it and respond. So let's go ahead and jump right into this.
He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A lot of what has been done before to try to make sense of how difficult it is to restrain people who want unaccountable power. And none of us in this room, including all of us on this panel, would choose to live under a regime that was so unaccountable that it could act with impunity the way that Putin does, except that's who Trump is modeling.
First, I think you really don't like him.
That is absolutely true. But I really, not only do I not like him, I don't like him because of what he's doing to the United States and the world. And I think you should take a hard look at it if you think that there is something good that will come out of it.
What I think Trump is doing in America, I think it is reaction for something for some policies that really went too far from the regular people, too far from reality. So we saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution. I don't agree with the gender revolution, the climate alarmism.
Which gender? Women having their rights?
No, let Peter go on.
I think there are two genders. So, but some of us think that there is more than one, or more than two gender. I think there is male and female, and the rest probably is a social construct.
So there you have it. A quick glimpse of that exchange between the two folks. It seemed like there was a lot of Democrats who actually went to the Munich Security Council really to kind of voice their, disapproval of Donald Trump, and to let the world kind of know that there's that after Trump's reign that they're going to rein it all back in. It seemed like a lot of the presidential hopefuls, in this case, Hillary Clinton was there. They all sort of wanted to go and kind of attack him. I never did understand this, and what I'll do is I'll actually play the full clip. This was a quick little preview of it. I never understood this. The United States has two different parties that control it, the Republicans and the Democrats. Now, I understand in the election season where the two parties are going back and forth, you may bash each other internally at home as you try to win over voters. But once the votes have been counted and a president has been selected, aren't we all as Americans supposed to rally behind the president that's been elected to represent us in the global stage? Doesn't it look bad to our neighbors, the people whom we're trying to get to see us in a certain light as the moral high ground that they should model their democracies after? Doesn't it look bad that the opposing leaders who's lost the election are now bashing the person who was democratically elected into the office on a grand stage in public? Doesn't that give them the impression that the notion of democracy is not something that we really subscribe to, as long as it doesn't go according to what we think it should go as? Trump ran an election, he won, and now his critics, the people he beat in the election, are now bashing him on the world stage. That's embarrassing to me. I don't know. That to me just, it seems out of order. It seems wrong. It seems like it shouldn't be happening. What say you? I mean, what do you guys think about that? It seems out of pocket for me. Now, Trump was not at all a fan of Joe Biden. You know, he was very critical of him. He felt that he got robbed in the election. I never saw Donald Trump in the 4 years that Joe Biden was president. I didn't see him go to the Munich Security Council or the World Economic Forum. I didn't see him go and bash Joe Biden once he was declared the president for the time period that he was there. I didn't see anybody really on the Republican side do that, actually. So why is it acceptable when Democrats do it? I think just as a family thing, as an American thing, I just think it's a bad look. I just recently saw Stephen A. Smith do a clip that was kind of similar, where he kind of went after Gavin Newsom, because this seems to be a trend. Gavin Newsom went and proceeded to attack Trump, and, you know, just to undermine the guy. You got Democratic senators and congressmen flying abroad to Greenland to really kind of shed a negative light on the guy's agenda. And it doesn't give the world the impression that we are honoring the votes of the American people, right? Once the contest, which is the election, is done, I would imagine that we all rally behind one president, whether we like him or don't like him. I'm not a big Joe Biden fan, but when he won, he was the president. And so we had to kind of eat it as he was falling asleep in meetings and kind of falling down and all that stuff. I mean, as an American, you had to take that, like, you had to, that's your president. You had to accept it. You couldn't, in Europe, go out and criticize the guy in public to make him look worse than he already looked on his own, right? Like that would be crazy. I just don't understand the logic. I think it's a bad look. I think it actually undermines the notion of democracy that we try to preach to the world. They see it as very hypocritical, right? You're talking about democracy. The guy ran an election. He won the popular vote, won all the districts. He pretty much ran the table against his opponent. And now we're all supposed to rally behind him, but instead all his critics and opposition are going abroad and bad-mouthing him, as if to say, don't take him seriously. Don't listen to him. He doesn't really represent what we're talking about. It's almost like, well, if he doesn't represent what you're talking about, then what was these votes for? Why did they even vote for him? That's kind of crazy. Like, why we vote for a guy that you're going to undermine in the grandstand, you know, in the grand stage? That's crazy to me. I think it's a bad look across the board. No matter where it is you stand, you know, my doctrine as a Christian says you got to pray for your leaders. You know what I mean? So whoever it is that gets elected, you just got to pray that God is with them and that they're able to manage, you know, and do right by the people, essentially. But, you know, when you see stuff like that, and I keep seeing it, and it's like no one speaks up against it. To me, it's shameful to me in a way. Like, it's one thing if you disagree with him domestically and you criticize him domestically. I get it. You know what I mean? Like, at home, you know, in your house, you could disagree with your family members. It makes sense. But I'm not going to go to the neighbor's house and start talking trash about somebody in my household and then call a community meeting and then, like, badmouth the people that live in my house or the leaders of my house. That to me looks bad. I think it reflects badly on them. And there was an exchange here, and I'm going to play it in its entirety. It's like a 9-minute clip. We saw little clips here and there, but there was an exchange where you can see, as she's taking the tone, a guy who's European is almost defending the guy who's the leader of her country. And then he literally says to her, like, you must really not like him. It's almost like you don't even see how this reflects on you, right? And so you have her, you have Gavin Newsom, you had AOC. They all went over there to make a skeptical out of the guy. And I have different clips. And to me, I just think it's a bad look. So to me, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me for some reason. But let's jump into it and let's see what this looks like.
Secretary Clinton, so thank you for that. And you got.
You really mean that?
Yes, I do. I do, and you got several rounds of applause there. But I'm really interested in the line that our discussion is having already, which is a battle within the West between conservatism and liberalism. But I don't think we would be having this discussion at all if it weren't for some of the positions the US administration has taken. And let me take one of them, which is Ukraine, which is obviously at the center of the Munich discussions in the past couple of years. And the line that the Trump administration has taken in trying to resolve the Ukraine conflict following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and its apparent thrust to accept Russia's territorial encroachment on Ukraine. And to you, I absolutely, I understand, and we've had various versions of it already, your characterization of a clash between conservative and liberal values being, at the heart of what's going on in the West. But in this particular one, a security issue, one that involves international law, whether countries still respect those international laws laid down after the Second World War, do you think that brings a new rift within the West? Ukraine, the US's position. Yes, I am.
I think that the Trump administration's position toward Ukraine is disgraceful. I think the effort to force Ukraine into a surrender deal with Putin is shameful. I think the effort that Putin and Trump are making to profit off the misery and death of the Ukrainian people is a historic error and corrupt to the nth degree. And so I believe Ukraine is fighting for our democracy and our values of freedom and civilization on the front lines, losing thousands of people and having their country destroyed by one man's mania to control them. And I think Trump either doesn't understand or could care less about that suffering. So that's what I think.
And so do you think he has destroyed the West to go to a battle?
He has betrayed the West. He's betrayed human values. He's betrayed the NATO Charter, the Atlantic Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A lot of what has been done before to try to make sense of how difficult it is to restrain people who want unaccountable power. And none of us in this room, including all of us on this panel, would choose to live under a regime that was so unaccountable that it could act with impunity the way that Putin does, except that's who Trump is modeling himself
I don't think we would be having...
I just think her position was very strong. She's saying Trump has betrayed the West. He has a different political philosophy. And the two philosophies was debated extensively for more than 8 years. And the American people chose his philosophy, i.e. America first, above the philosophy of being, a president of the whole world as opposed to being the president of the United States. And so Trump has been very clear that he was never in support of the Ukraine war, and had he had been president, it would not have happened. He would have made sure he did everything in his power to prevent it from even going into place. Him saying, let's stop fighting, I don't believe is a betrayal. I don't believe that. I disagree with with Mrs. Clinton on this. I don't believe this is a betrayal. And you could hear that there's some bitter feelings that this lady has against this guy. I mean, she's gone through great extents to tarnish his name and things of that nature. But to say that he's betrayed the West, he has a different philosophy. And he has not been silent about what his philosophy is. I mean, if anybody has ever followed any prior interviews with Trump, going way back to Charlie Rose days, the guy is essentially the same guy in terms of his philosophy. You know, how he views the world and how he felt a lot of our allies was taking advantage of us. And he felt those wrongs, i.e., one of those wrongs being that, you know, the United States is covering the bulk of the expenses to defend European countries against their adversary, Russia, but they're not even paying the 2% that they were supposed to pay. He thought that was wrong. He presented that to the American people. They thought that was wrong. They voted him in. And what he's done is he threatened to pull out. Next thing you know, they're paying more than double what they said they were going to pay, which to me, I think is fair. It's not a betrayal because he's saying, I don't think we should be covering the lying costs of your defense. I mean, we still are. They're paying 5% of the cost, and we're paying the other 95%. I mean, it's laughable when you look at it. So I in a way, he was praised by the NATO chief, Mark Rutte, saying because of him taking a tough stance, we're actually getting more money to come in from all the different members of the European of NATO, of the European coalition, NATO. They're actually paying their fair share, what they had committed to paying. That's a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's not a betrayal. If he's saying, well, you guys have to take an interest in policing your backyard, you got to do more. You can't expect us to send soldiers to your backyard to die for your cause. Meanwhile, you're trading oil with the guy that you're supposedly an enemy of. Meanwhile, you're still kind of low-key doing business with them, but you want us to take a hard-line position against them, and you want us to jump into a conflict, and it just doesn't look like you're as invested as we are. To me, that's not a betrayal. That's a call to fairness, I think. I don't see betrayal in that, but Ms. Clinton seems to think it is.
This debate under that kind of regime, for sure. We will come back, I suspect, to the conservatism and liberalism clash within the West, but thank you for that. Peter, do you agree that the Trump administration's actions on Ukraine have produced a rift in the West?
Well, first, I think you really don't like him.
You know, that is absolutely true. But I really, not only do I not like him, I don't like him because of what he's doing to the United States and the world. And I think you should take a hard look at it if you think that there is something good that will come out of it.
Peter.
What I think Trump is doing in America, I think it is reaction for something for some policies that really went too far from the regular people, too far from reality. So, you know, we saw the cancel culture. We saw the woke revolution. I don't agree with the gender revolution, the climate alarmism.
Which gender? Women having their rights?
No, let Peter go on.
I think there are two genders. So, but some of us think that there is more than one, or more than two gender. I think there is male and female, and the rest probably is a social construct. So this is something that went too far.
But does that justify selling out the people of Ukraine who are on the front lines dying to save their freedom and their two genders? If that's what you're worried about?
Can I please finish my points? I'm sorry that it makes you nervous. I'm really sorry for that.
It makes me nervous. It makes me
No, but seriously, can we let Peter finish, please? Can we let Peter finish, please?
I have to say one more thing. You said that Ukraine fights for our future and for our freedom. I think first, Ukraine fights for Ukraine's future. freedom and Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. So we should help them, of course. But what I see on some people in the West, they are trying to help the Ukraine. But that's another question. I don't know if Trump's administration is helping the Ukraine to stop the war. I believe that there is such an.
Her body language says everything you need to see. She has marked that man as her enemy in her mind. The way this lady's looking at this man, I don't know. I get the impression that she's very, 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 very angry individual. I'm not gonna lie. Right? And she tries to polish it, but it comes out once in a blue. You could see in the exchange where they asked for the man's opinion. He gave his opinion. And before you know it, she's the sarcasm coming from her. She's challenging him. And it's like he's got his own opinion, you know, and you could tell like she's looking at him like marking. I saw Patrick Bet-David say something. He's lucky that thing was recorded because it could have been his last days. If looks could kill, boy, oh my God. She not playing with him, boy. She just marked that dude. She's not his friend. But you could tell in terms of her influence, people are speaking up now. They're not like keeping their opinions to themselves. Like clearly this man felt bold enough to speak out against what she was saying. He's calling it for what it is. Like you have bad feelings towards President Trump for whatever reason. That shouldn't be why we as Europeans justify continuing a war that Ukraine is not going to win. You know what I mean? Like, and what he was saying is that Trump being elected is really due to the fact that you overplayed your hand. Her party overplayed her hand in that, people didn't want to continue things the way Joe Biden and Obama had it going. They changed it. They didn't want that. They wanted to scale back on some of the gender stuff. They wanted to scale back on wars and, all these things that was going abroad. They wanted to scale back on the climate change stuff. They wanted to scale back on, the transgender free speech or restriction thereof. They wanted to scale back. They wanted a different direction, which is why Trump is in power now. But him pointing that out is not what Hillary Clinton wants to hear, because I think she still wants to feel like she has the ability to influence everyone in that room, when the reality is she doesn't. In a way, I'm not saying she's powerless. She still has some mechanisms by which she can move. But in a way, Trump is kind of calling the shots. And I think it bothers her, but she kind of got to sit through the storm. And this guy, very relaxed, very laid back, is essentially giving her that hard truth.
Approach. I don't see any other strong geopolitical player who would be able to force Russia to stop killing the Ukraine people and stop destroying their country. I don't see. Maybe China, but China makes nothing. I don't know if the pressure, if Trump is forcing Russia in the way that they will stop the war. I don't know. I only see that the only Americans right at the moment can make it. I see dialogue.
Do you think Europe could put more pressure on Russia, for example, by putting pressure on Turkey, by targeting the refineries of oil more, and so on?
I think Europe also makes some pressure. We release sanctions. We do what we can. But I think the Russians, they probably don't care. When I visited Ukraine, I saw the goodwill of all people in Ukraine. They were really united and willing to stop the war. But
they keep fighting. There seem to be
also made some steps that a year ago no one from them would allow to say or even suggest. Now they are ready to make some steps back. Now it's ball on the Russian side, but I don't see any goodwill on their side. So
indeed, we probably are agreed on that point. Peter, will you forgive me? I want to come on to Ivan, who's been writing and looking at this for a long time, from Sofia and other places.
Now listen, there are two conversations, and I want to make 2 points. One is, if we really believe that it's about conservative versus liberal, then conservatism is very much about sovereignty and the national community. The way the American administration now defines the freedom of speech is basically the right of the American technological companies. If you're conservative, land is not real estate. And I'm saying this because in this conservative position, there is a major contradiction. And the second problem, which I found really important on this, is I believe in the intentions of the American president to try to stop killing. This is noble. There are more than 1.5 million people being killed or wounded. The problem is that you cannot solve this totally bracketing the question, is there a moral responsibility? Are they equally important? I remember during there was this famous anecdote when the Versailles Treaty was signed. One of the members of the German delegation went to the French Prime Minister and said, Mr. Prime Minister, in 100 years, probably people are going to have a different view of who is responsible for this war. And then the French Prime Minister said, for sure, but nobody is going to claim that it was Belgium that invaded Germany. And I'm saying this because, in my view, it's a very important what we define as peace. And it's not only about security guarantees. You cannot have peace if you're destroying the moral integrity of a nation.
Okay, that was that viewpoint. AOC also had some critical things to say on her end. She also went there. I guess this is the early audition for the 2028 presidential bid. Let's jump into what she had to say.
But back to AOC. The Brooklyn Congresswoman has showed up, oddly enough, at, of all places, the Munich Security Conference and made a pitch for, well, what's the old saying? To burnish her foreign policy credentials. Well, how did she go? You be the judge.
I think what we identify is that in a rules-based order, hypocrisy is vulnerability. And so I think what we are seeking is a return to a rules-based order that eliminates the hypocrisies around when too often in the West we'd look the other way for inconvenient populations to act out these paradoxes.
Yeah, that word salad there, that was a lot more Kamala Harris than Henry Kissinger. But she wasn't done. She was also asked what the U.S. should do if China decides to jump Taiwan. Big, easy question. Should America commit troops to this fight for freedom?
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
you know, I think that this is such a, you know, I think that this is this is, of course, a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point.
Was anybody else out there remembering that great time Kamala Harris did the whole routine about how Russia is a big country and Ukraine is a small country? Well, that's it right there. I mean, if that was any more of a word salad, it would need croutons. Though, to be serious, it is quite something that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and indeed the entire left can accuse Trump of not standing up to dictators and then turn around and stumble over the question of whether the U.S. should defend a democracy against the greatest authoritarian power on earth. Seems pretty simple to me. AOC, well, she also talked up the idea of a billionaire's tax. But as we all know from history, these sorts of things tend to very quickly become taxes on millionaires and then on the savings of everyone who doesn't want to be dependent on the government.
So when you run for president, are you going to impose a wealth tax or a billionaire's tax?
I don't think that I don't think that anyone, and that we don't have to wait for any one president to impose a wealth tax. I think that it needs to be done expeditiously.
And note that she did not bat away that question about whether or not she'd be running for president. And all this matters because in a not terribly crowded field, AOC is indeed on many insiders' shortlists for a presidential or vice presidential bid. Now, here's the good news in all this, and this is where the truth bomb comes in. Her faction, this hard left faction, well, they may be ruining places like New York City under socialist mayor Zoran Mandani, but normal Americans are looking at what they have on offer and increasingly saying, no thanks.
If the ideology of the Democratic Party is shifting or changing, how are people feeling about it?
Okay, so we're talking about the Democratic base, right? But what about all Americans, right? How about all voters? Voters say the Democrats are now too liberal. Look at this percentage. It was 42% in 96, 48% in 2013, now 58% in 2025 of all voters say that the Democratic Party is too liberal.
That's big.
So the left is talking to themselves, not to the general public. How good, right? And that is going to explode in the Democrats' faces if they keep going down this road in 2028. Personally, I say bring it on. I mean, is it too early for me to get an AOC 2028 for president's bumper sticker for the Mustang? I won't have that little auto stop thing to deal with, will I?
Okay. So that's this man's take. Well, you see the statistics there. Apparently, I think a lot of the far left talking points are not in line with what people want to hear. Like, according to that statistic, it seemed like things are a little off, and they do need to repurpose their messaging a little bit to be more appealing to the masses. There was one more clip, I think, of Gavin Newsom, who had some critical things to say as well. Let's take a look at that. Okay, there you have it. I don't know why she would be the nominee. I'm not impressed every time I see that lady speaks. I'm not impressed at all. I don't see what all the talks about. Nothing she said has been like, wow, yeah, let me get behind that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe she'll be the nominee. I just don't think she'd be able to run a general election. But what do I know about this? I'm not an expert here. I'm just kind of reading it, trusting my gut on it. I'm not impressed particularly. But there you have it. There's two sides of the fence. Look, I understand that a lot of Democrats don't approve of Trump's agenda or what it is he wants to do on the grand stage. I get it. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a right to criticize it here in the States. I just think it's a bad look when you're going abroad and you're bad-mouthing your duly elected president. It makes you want these people to honor and respect democratic elections, but you don't do it. And when you go abroad and you badmouth the guy that the American people elected, it just makes it look crazy, it kind of makes you look hypocritical, because now it's like, if the people voted this guy in, why are you opposing him? He's been voted in. The contest was held. It is what it is. Like, you got to respect the fact that he's there. The one thing I can say is I don't ever remember, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Trump doing that, right? When Biden was the president, I don't remember Trump going abroad to give interviews undermining Biden's presidency. Trump had his gripes. He was trying to get that litigated in the States, and that's where it stood. I don't recall any grand stage sort of plea to criticize the guy abroad. But I don't know. I mean, I just think that's a line that's I don't know, a line too far, maybe, in my view. Stephen A seems to think the same thing. He was critical of Newsom when he did it. I'm just reading it for what it looks like. Again, I could be wrong, and I invite you guys to weigh in. Let me know your thoughts. But I just feel like our business should be our business, and we should litigate all that stuff in our borders, not necessarily abroad at the Munich Security Council. Okay, well, Mr. B, thank you for joining us for this episode, this segment. Hopefully you got something out of it. This was certainly entertaining. There's a lot of debate right now about what the values are that the West stands behind. Clearly Europe and the US aren't seen eye to eye on what those values are, and you can see there's some fractions, there's some movement, because again, there's a new leader here who has a whole different viewpoint, and he's trying to implement his agenda, on the world stage. So we'll see how it all plays out. Definitely welcome you guys to like and subscribe, get connected, but also weigh in. Let me know what you think. Your opinion matters here. So thank you all for joining me, and until we speak again, be well.